Hi, I'm Lillian. Welcome back to my channel Ink and Pages. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Like everyone always says, this is such a staple on BookTube. I'm very excited to finally be doing it. I actually have no idea why this time last year I didn't do this video. I think maybe I just ran out of time. So I'm very excited to be doing it now. I am filming this slightly later than I wanted to because we've had this mini heat wave in the UK, which has made it basically impossible for me to function without sitting in front of a fan 24/7. But the temperature has just started to drop. It's raining outside right now, which is very exciting. So let's just get on with it. So the first question is, what is your favourite book you've read so far this year? I have only given 3 books this year 5 stars, and 2 of them are rereads. They were Red, White and Royal Blue and then Monstrous Volume 1. So the only new favourite 5-star book I've read has been Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I talk about this and gush about this a lot in my spring reading wrap up, but basically all you need to know was that this book was perfection, absolutely incredible, 5 out of 5 stars, a new all-time favourite. And it was just so nice to enjoy this book as much as everyone did like 5 years ago when it first came out, because this has been doing the rounds on BookTube for a long while. So I really thought there was no way I would possibly enjoy it as much as everyone else seemed to 5 years ago. But I was wrong. It was amazing. I loved it just as much as everyone else seems to, and I'm very excited to read the sequel. The next question is, what was your favourite sequel you've read so far this year? And I have read hardly any sequels. The only series I've read have been the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J Maas, which I reread a little while ago, and then the Monstrous graphic novel series, which is by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. So what I have done is I've chosen 1 book from each of these series. So I have gone with A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the trilogy, and then the second volume of Monstrous, which is called The Blood. For star ratings, I gave Akamath 3 stars and then this volume of Monstrous 4 stars. So if you were to look at it in a purely technical sense, this would be, you know, like the best sequel, my favourite sequel I've read so far this year. But if we were to judge it on these books' placements within their respective series and look at what kind of a job they did progressing the series and improving upon it, I would probably have to give it to Akamath, because this is just so obviously the high point in the series. It's the best book in the series. I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 2 stars when I reread it. Like it was really not very good upon reread. But this one, you know, it stayed as fun and ridiculous and impressive in comparison to the first book. Whereas with the Monstrous series, when I reread them, I actually ended up giving the first volume a full 5 stars. I just love it so much. So even though this has a higher star rating than Akamath, it was technically a step down in quality in the series, whereas this was quite obviously a big step up. So they're both my answer. They're tied as the best sequel I've read so far this year. The next 2 questions are both on 2021 releases. So question 3 is a new release you haven't read but want to. Slightly reluctantly, I'm going to admit that my answer to this question is A Court of Silver Flames, which is the next book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. Despite everything I just said about rereading the series and it being very disappointing, it still managed to make me invested in these characters and want to return to the world of this series. So I do want to read this. I don't think I'm going to like it that much, to be honest. I think I'll enjoy the reading experience, but not the actual book, because this is based on 2 characters from the original 3 books, which were easily my least favourite 2 characters. Like honestly, I really don't care about them. I think they kind of both suck. So it's going to be an interesting reading experience, but yes, that is my answer for this question. It's also maybe the ugliest book on my TBR. I hate to say it, but it's true. The cover redesign is horrendous, but I still want to read it. And then question 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of this year. I have tried my best to find an answer to this question. I scoured Goodreads for, you know, like lists of new releases. I've watched so many people's BookTube videos on, you know, like my most anticipated releases from 2021. And honestly, none of them stood out to me, like at all. Some of them are very interesting, but I couldn't pull an easy answer. So instead, I am going with Reputation by Lex Croucher. I have followed her on YouTube and Instagram for what feels like forever. think she's a really cool person, and I'm excited to read this book. I don't think it's going to end up, being an all-time favourite of mine, because the lesson I seem to have learned over and over this year is that YA books often disappoint me. But for every mediocre book in the YA sea, every now and then you come across a Six of Crows. So I'm just excited to give it a go. Speaking of disappointments, the next question is, what has been your biggest disappointment of 2021? And honestly, there are a lot of books I could choose for this. I have read disappointing new books. I have reread books which turned out to be disappointing. I have been disappointed by both new authors and old favourite authors. But the answer I'm going with is a slightly controversial one. It is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This book is by Talia Hibbert and is an adult romance book that everyone and their mum has been talking about on BookTube and saying how amazing it was. I really didn't like it. Didn't get on with the characters. And when you're reading a romance book where sort of the two main characters are the main, if not only, selling point of the book, if you can't connect with them, it's just not going to work for you. And that's exactly what happened with me. I didn't connect with them at all, and I spent all of the book thinking, when am I going to start to care about Chloe and Red? And the answer was literally never. And after finding this book so disappointing, I have decided I'm not going to read the next book in the series, but I am potentially interested in the third one, which is At Your Rave, Eve Brown, because the premise just sounds much more interesting to me than the first or second books. So that is a potential might read at some point, but I'm not in a hurry to. The next question is your biggest surprise of the year. So I am going with The Girl Who Smelled Beads by Clementine Wamaria. This is a memoir about the author's experiences during the Rwandan Civil War and then the Rwandan genocide, and the 6 years she and her elder sister Claire spent as refugees moving through, I think 6 or 7 different countries in Africa before finally going to America. And I really have not heard anyone else on BookTube or Bookstagram talking about this book, which again is also a surprise to me because this book is really, really incredible and I would highly, highly recommend it. And I think more people should be recommending it on BookTube. The next question is your favourite new author, and that can be either a debut author or one you are just reading for the first time. So I'm going to go with one of the authors I read in the anthology, 1,000 Beginnings and Endings. I'm going to go with Roshni Chokshi, who actually wrote the very first story in here, which was probably my favourite overall. It was just so beautifully written and was a definite standout for me. So I've had a quick look through her Goodreads shelf to see what else she'd written, because I really recognised the name. I could tell she's oh yeah, she's a YA fantasy author, but I couldn't actually remember any of the books she'd written. But I've had a look through and I'm quite intrigued by her Gilded Wolves books, because it's a found family doing a magical heist, which has been very successful for me so far this year. So I'm very excited to maybe give that series a go. Next question is your newest fictional crush, which I have 0 answers for, so we're gonna skip that one straight away and go to your new favorite character. At risk of sounding like a broken record, I am gonna pick some of the characters from Six of Crows. I think possibly Jesper and Kaz, which are 2 of the 6, I think are my new favourite characters. They're just so fun to read about. Jesper because he's very unpredictable and chaotic and funny, and then Kaz because he's just constantly masterminding everything and he's one step ahead of everyone at every single point, and it's just very, very fun to read about. The next question is your favourite book adaptation that you've seen this year, and I'm going to once again choose Six of Crows as my answer, and I'm going to say Shadow and Bone, which is the Netflix adaptation of both the Shadow and Bone trilogy and also the Six of Crows books, so they're sort of all combined within this series. So yeah, that is my answer, even though I actually have not finished watching this series yet. I'm only 3 episodes in, and even though I actually did not ever finish the Shadow and Bone series, I read 1 and a bit of the books before I gave up, and even though the Six of Crows storylines that are in the books haven't actually started within the TV show yet. So it's not really adapting anything that I've read properly. Despite all of those factors, this is by far the best adaptation I've seen so far this year. The next question is a book that made you cry. I'm very quickly going to just mention, again, The Girl Who Smelled Beads. This is such an incredibly emotional and heartbreaking book, which I feel like I've said 1,000 times, I highly recommend and everyone should read. The second to last question is the most beautiful book you've gotten so far this year. I have two answers for this. The most beautiful book I have bought for myself is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. This cover is absolutely amazing. The artwork's also really cool. It's sort of black and white, but with like pinkish bits as well. It's just very, very beautiful from start to finish. And the most beautiful book I have borrowed of someone is The Outrun by Amy Liptrot. And I just think this cover is breathtakingly beautiful. Okay, and the last question is your favourite video or post you have done this year. For my favourite video, I'm probably going to say my Tis the Damn Readathon vlog, which I just had so much fun filming and editing, and I'm really, really proud of how it turned out. And for my favourite like post, I'm going to quickly shout out my Bookstagram account, at Income Pages, and I'm really proud of this picture which I posted recently of my current read Joyful. I really love this photo and it got like 12 likes, but that's not why we're doing it. We're not doing it for the likes, we're doing it for fun, but I'm very proud of how that picture turned out. So those are my answers for the mid-year book freakout tag. Very exciting. I would like to know what the worst book you read this year was, because that's not actually one of the questions. You know, they asked for best, most disappointing and most surprising. They don't actually ask what your worst book was, and mine was one that I have not mentioned in this video. So let me know what yours was, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!